According to a sworn statement filed in late October of 2019, a man named Armin Qureshi received a phone call from his own number. At first, he thought it was a glitch, a simple error, something technical, something explainable. But what he heard on the other end would later be described by a licensed psychiatrist as a sustained psychological trauma event, and by the attending cleric as a direct and intelligent presence that should not have been able to speak. The call lasted exactly 1 minute and 17 seconds. And it changed everything. Armin lived alone in a small apartment on the 4th floor of a concrete building in Karachi. He worked as a freelance graphic designer, kept irregular hours, and rarely left his home unless necessary. Neighbors described him as quiet, polite, and withdrawn. There was nothing unusual about him, nothing that would suggest what was about to happen. On the night of October 12th, at approximately 2:13 a.m., Armin was awake, sitting at his desk. His computer screen cast a dull blue light across the room. Outside, the city had fallen into that brief silence that only exists between midnight and dawn. That was when his phone rang. He glanced at it without much interest. Unknown calls at that hour were not uncommon for him. Clients from different time zones, wrong numbers, spam. But when he looked closer, something felt wrong. The number on the screen was his own. He stared at it for several seconds, trying to process what he was seeing. Same digits, same format. Even the saved contact name appeared. Armin Qureshi. He assumed it was a software bug. A mirrored call. Maybe an app malfunction. He hesitated, then answered. There was no greeting. No background noise. Only breathing. Slow, uneven breathing. Armin's first instinct was to speak. Hello. The breathing continued. No response. He tried again, a little louder this time. Who is this? What happened next was later repeated by Armin multiple times, and his account never changed. The voice that answered was his own. Not similar. Not distorted. Identical. But it didn't sound right. It was quieter. Strained. As if it was coming from far away, or from somewhere deep inside a closed space. Don't hang up. Armin froze. For a moment, he couldn't even respond. His throat tightened. His chest felt heavy. This isn't funny, he said, trying to sound firm. Silence. Then the voice spoke again. You already did. A sharp wave of confusion hit him. What? You hung up, the voice said. You always hang up. Armin instinctively pulled the phone away from his ear, checking the screen. The call was still active. Duration: 0:32 seconds. He brought it back slowly. I'm still here, he said. There was a pause. Then, very quietly, no, you're not. At this point, Armin later admitted that fear began to settle in. Not panic. Not yet. But something deeper. Something colder. He stood up from his chair and turned on the main light in his room. I don't know who this is, he said. But stop it. The breathing returned. Closer now. Louder. Then the voice whispered something that investigators later noted as the first direct deviation from logical structure. It said, check the bathroom. Armin didn't move. He stared at the closed bathroom door across the room. A thin line of darkness beneath it. He hadn't been in there for hours. Why? He asked. No response. Only breathing. Why would I check the bathroom? The voice answered immediately this time. Because you left it open. Armin's eyes flicked back to the door. It was closed. Completely. The handle hadn't moved. I didn't leave it open, he said. Another pause, then. Yes, you did. The line went silent for a full 5 seconds. Then the call ended. 1 minute and 17 seconds. Armin stood in the center of his room, phone still in his hand, staring at the bathroom door. He did not approach it. Not immediately. Instead, he checked his call log. There it was. An incoming call. From his own number. Duration: 1 minute and 17 seconds. No errors. No missing data. He tried calling the number back. His own phone rang in his hand. That was when the unease turned into something else. Something heavier. Something that didn't feel like confusion anymore. It felt like being watched. According to his later testimony, Armin did not sleep that night. He stayed awake until sunrise. Every light in the apartment turned on. the television playing at low volume just to fill the silence. He avoided the bathroom completely. At around 7:40 a.m., he finally gathered the courage to open the door. The room inside was normal. Sink dry. Mirror clean. No signs of disturbance. But something felt off. He couldn't explain it at the time, but he described it as a sense that the room had been occupied recently. Not physically, but something had been there, watching, waiting. Over the next 2 days, Armin tried to dismiss the incident. He told himself it was stress, lack of sleep, a hallucination triggered by isolation. He avoided telling anyone, but the calls continued. Each night, at nearly the same time, 2:13 a.m., always from his own number, always with the same breathing, and always with his own voice. On the second night, the voice sounded clearer, stronger, less distant. It spoke more. Not full conversations, just short, unsettling statements. You missed it again. It's closer now. Why won't you listen? Armin began recording the calls. He needed proof. Something real. Something he could show to someone else. The recordings, later reviewed by 2 independent audio specialists, confirmed something deeply disturbing. There were 2 distinct voices. One was Armin's. The other was also Armin's, but the second voice had slight inconsistencies in pacing, breathing patterns that didn't match natural speech, and moments where it seemed to overlap, just slightly, as if it wasn't perfectly synchronized with human timing. On the 4th night, the voice said something new, something specific. Open the bathroom door before I do. Armin didn't respond. He couldn't. His eyes were fixed on the door again. Closed. Still. Silent. Open it, the voice repeated. No, Armin whispered. There was a long pause. Then, but the second voice had slight inconsistencies in pacing, breathing patterns that didn't match natural speech, and moments where it seemed to overlap, just slightly, as if it wasn't perfectly synchronized with human timing. On the 4th night, the voice said something new, something specific. Open the bathroom door before I do. Armin didn't respond. He couldn't. His eyes were fixed on the door again. Closed. Still. Silent. Open it, the voice repeated. No, Armin whispered. There was a long pause. Then, you won't like it if I open it. Armin hung up. Immediately. His hands were shaking now. He backed away from the door, his breathing shallow. For the first time, he considered leaving the apartment. But something held him there. Not logic. Not reason. Something else. A feeling that if he left, whatever was happening would follow him. Or worse, be waiting for him when he returned. That night, he locked the bathroom door from the outside. He pushed a chair against it. And he stayed awake. Watching. Listening. Waiting. At exactly 2:13 a.m., his phone rang again. This time, before he could even answer, the bathroom door handle moved. Slowly. Deliberately. The chair trembled as something on the other side began to push against it. The chair scraped violently across the floor. Armin didn't move. He couldn't. The sound was not loud, but it was deliberate. Controlled. As if whatever was behind that door was testing the resistance. Learning it. The phone continued to ring in his hand. Same number. His number. He answered without thinking. The breathing was already there. Closer than before. And for the first time it wasn't alone. There was another sound layered beneath it. A faint dragging. Like something shifting across tiles. You locked me in. The voice no longer sounded distant. It sounded present. Right behind the door. Armin swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak. There's no one in there. A pause. Then, you didn't check properly. The chair jerked again, pushing an inch further. The door handle twisted downward with a slow, unnatural pressure. Armin stepped back. Every instinct told him to run, to leave the apartment, to get out into the street, into the noise, into anything that felt real. But his legs wouldn't respond. Stop, he said weakly. The voice ignored him. I've been here longer than you. The statement hung in the air. Cold. Heavy. I was here before you closed it. Armin's mind raced, trying to piece together something logical, something that could explain the situation. A break-in. A hidden entry point. A person playing a cruel, elaborate trick. But none of it fit. None of it explained the voice. None of it explained the calls. And none of it explained how something could be speaking from inside a locked room, using his own voice. The door creaked slightly. Just a fraction. The chair shifted again. Then the voice lowered, almost to a whisper. "Open it." Armin shook his head, though no one could see him.
No.
Silence followed. Complete. Even the breathing stopped. For a moment, everything was still. Then the voice returned. Different now. Flattened. Emotionless. "You opened it before." Armin's chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" No response. Only that same dragging sound. Faint and irregular. Then, "You always open it." The call ended. The room fell into silence again. But the pressure behind the door did not stop. It continued.
Slow. Steady.
Until the chair moved just enough for the door to shift open a single inch. Armin saw it. That narrow gap of darkness. And something inside that darkness moved. Not clearly. Not fully visible. Just a slight adjustment. Like something stepping back out of sight. Armin turned and ran. He didn't grab anything. Not his wallet. Not his keys. Not even his phone. He left the apartment barefoot, the door swinging open behind him, his heart pounding so violently he could barely hear anything else. Neighbors later reported hearing footsteps in the hallway at that hour, followed by a door slamming. Armin didn't stop until he reached the street. He stayed there until morning. When the sun finally rose, he returned, but not alone. He brought 2 neighbors with him. They entered the apartment cautiously. Everything appeared normal. Nothing broken. Nothing disturbed. The bathroom door was open. The chair was pushed aside. Inside, the tiles were dry. The mirror untouched. There was no sign of forced entry. No hidden exits. Nothing that would explain what had happened. Armin retrieved his phone from the floor where he had dropped it. There was a new call in the log. 2:13 a.m. Duration midnight. Missed call. From his own number. That was when he decided to seek help. At first, he went to a local clinic. He described the calls, the voice, the movement of the door. The doctor suggested sleep deprivation, acute stress, possible auditory hallucinations. He was prescribed medication, advised to rest. But the calls did not stop. Even outside the apartment, they continued. At a relative's house. In a crowded cafe. Once, even in the waiting room of the clinic itself. Always at 2:13 a.m. Always from his own number. And always with something new. Something more specific. On the 7th night, the voice said, "You left the door open again." Armin was not at home when he received that call. He was across the city, miles away from his apartment. The next morning, he returned reluctantly. The building felt different, quieter. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. When he reached his door, he stopped. It was slightly open, just enough to reveal darkness inside. He was certain he had locked it. Certain. But the lock showed no damage. No signs of tampering. He pushed the door open carefully. The apartment was silent. Still. Exactly as he had left it, except for one thing. The bathroom door was wide open. And the light inside was on. Armin didn't step closer. He couldn't. He stood in the entrance, staring at that open doorway, a deep, instinctive fear settling over him. Something had changed. Not physically, but the atmosphere. The space no longer felt empty. It felt occupied. That was when he contacted a local cleric, a man known for dealing with cases that others avoided. According to the cleric's written account, he visited the apartment that same evening. He described Armin as mentally exhausted but coherent, showing no signs of delusion or psychosis. The cleric conducted a brief recitation inside the living room. Nothing happened. No reaction. No disturbance. But when he approached the bathroom, he stopped, mid-step. Later, he would write, "There was a resistance, not physical but undeniable, a pressure that suggested presence." He asked Armin a simple question. "Did you invite anything into this place?" Armin shook his head.
No.
The cleric nodded slowly. Then he asked another question. Did you answer every call? Armin hesitated. Only for a second, but that was enough. Yes. The cleric closed his eyes briefly, then said, "Next time it calls, do not respond." That night, they waited, together, in silence. 2:13 a.m. approached. The air felt heavier with each passing second. Then, the phone lit up. Incoming call. Armin's number. It began to ring. Neither of them moved. The ringing continued. Louder. More insistent. Then abruptly, it stopped. The screen went dark. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from inside the bathroom, a voice spoke.
Clear.
Close. Unmistakable. Armin's voice. You didn't answer. The cleric's expression changed instantly. He stepped back.
Slowly. Carefully.
And then, in a low, controlled tone, he said something Armin would never forget. It doesn't need the phone anymore. The bathroom light flickered once, then went out, and in the darkness that followed, something shifted inside.